Welcome to a Telltale Books video. I'm Greg, and I'm going to continue my J.G. Ballard series in this video with his 34th work, which, according to my bibliography, my best research shows me was the next story he published after the publication of the book The Drowned World, which Emily and I just have read and reviewed and shot that video, and it's up on the channel. So Subliminal Man then is number 34, published in January of 1963 in New Worlds magazine. Before it was edited by Moorcock, I believe it was Ted Carnell editing the magazine at this time. And I don't have that issue of New Worlds. I have very few issues of New Worlds. I read the story in the complete short stories of J.G. Ballard, my Ballard Bible, which has been my most beloved book for this project, and one which I definitely recommend for anybody who loves J.G. Ballard or wants to try him. I think it's a good book to get into because there's so much good stuff in it. So in the Subliminal Man, you know what subliminal advertising was, right? A man named Hathaway believes that huge signs that are being installed along the interstate, along freeways, he thinks they're flashing subliminal messages. And he sets out to try to prove this. And he investigates. Because the next thing that happens is he finds himself doing things that he wouldn't normally do, buying stuff that he wouldn't normally buy. Good quote from the story: "Advertising is here to stay. We've no real freedom of choice anyway. We can't spend more than we can afford. The finance companies will soon clamp down." This is a brilliant story, taking advertising and consumerism and the psychology of consumerism and extrapolating it into a world where it's more pervasive than it already was in the 1960s. And yes, companies were experimenting with subliminal messages in advertising. We do know that for sure. And so Ballard is taking this to a much more extreme exploration of it, and showing how these people were being driven by consumerism to go out and spend so that these companies could increase their profit statements. And they really didn't care what it was doing to people. They didn't care if people actually needed the products. All they cared about was that bottom line. And this is the danger. I'm not going to say that our world is really like this, but it's the danger of the capitalistic consumer society we have, is that somebody might decide to use psychology and try to take advantage of people and drive people to spend all their money on them, and possibly even get people into financial trouble by having them spend money that they really shouldn't be spending. And the people doing it just don't care, because all they care about is more wealth in their bank account. Ballard is, as usual, Ballard is looking at the reality of the world around him and just taking a little bit into the future, a little bit farther down the road, and showing us just how absurd and surreal and dangerous it all is. How our modern world, how our civilization, what we're doing could lead us down the wrong path and do something that we shouldn't. I'm not doing this story justice. I highly recommend it. It's one of the best stories I've read so far by Ballard. When I got done with it, I was just, wow, this is a story that blew me away. And so this is a top tale. I can't praise this story highly enough. I was rather disappointed by The Drowned World because it was such a slow burn story. I mean, it was a good novel, very well written. Definitely a terrific novel, but just not as good as the short stories that I've been reading by Ballard. The short stories have been far more enjoyable and have really impacted me a lot more than his novels have. We'll have to see. He stops writing short stories pretty much and focuses just on novels. We'll have to see if he can win me over with his novels, because so far he's got, I've enjoyed the novels, but they just aren't top tales. Wind from Nowhere and Drowned World. The next novel coming up is going to be Drought, but we've got quite a few short stories between now and the Drought, and then we're going to hit the Drought and the Crystal World back to back. Though they were published 2 years apart, he didn't write any short stories in between, didn't publish any short stories in between. So like I say, his short story production really pulled back for a while, and then he writes exclusively short stories until Crash in 1973. And eventually he really slows down on short stories and is focused primarily on novels from 1994 until his death. So I hope he can win me over with the future novels coming up. But at any rate, I'm really enjoying his short stories, which are all found in this one book. You can get them all by buying one book. You have to find it used, but if you do, it's worth it. It is worth it. There's a lot of great stuff in here. Ballard is an incredible writer, and whatever disappointments I had about The Drowned World aside, I'm still convinced that he's just one of the very best. So Subliminal Man is highly recommended, and run out and find a copy of some book that has it in it and read it. And of course, if you have read it already, or if you go out and read it and you come back to this video, leave your comments. What did you think about the Subliminal Man? And then come back for more Ballard, the next one being A Question of Re-Entry, which I'm going to have a video for that up very shortly following this. And so come on back and join me for all of what we do here on Telltale Books.